Lamar Jackson is officially on the trade block. Could the Raiders seriously make a play? And the Raiders have inquired about DeAndre Hopkins, and now he's given permission to talk to teams what's going to happen. And Josh McDaniels, the Raiders head coach, spoke today to the media and gave us insight on what he plans to do at the quarterback position, especially with regards to the draft. If you want more Raiders content from me, make sure you click that red subscribe button so you do not miss the next one. So DeAndre Hopkins has been given permission to talk to other teams. We learned on the Pat McAfee show last week, according to Adam Pac-Man Jones, that cornerback, that the Raiders were one of 5 teams that are interested in DeAndre Hopkins, that they know for a fact are interested, want to maybe talk to the player, want to maybe trade for the guy. You had other teams like the Ravens, like the Bills. From what we're hearing, the Bills seem to be the favorite because obviously at this point in his career, DeAndre Hopkins wants to win a lot of games, but at the same time, the guy needs to get paid and the ball is in the Cardinals' court. The Cardinals need to trade this guy. They really do. He is going to cost about $30 million against the cap this upcoming season. If they don't trade him, they're going to have to pay that. So they may be willing and will likely be willing to eat a portion of his salary cap. We know that DeAndre Hopkins' no trade clause was voided because of a PED violation just last year. So the ball is completely in the Cardinals' court. The Cardinals can control this entire situation, and they're going to just go for whoever's going to give up the most amount, right? Whoever's going to pay the highest amount of salary and give up the highest draft pick. That's what they're going to do, regardless if D-Hop wants to play for the Bills, right? Because obviously the Bills have been contenders almost every year. He's going to want to do that, right? He's going to want to do that. But the Raiders definitely have an opportunity here, because if the Cardinals eat part of the salary cap and they're willing to give up a big draft pick, and the Raiders are maybe thinking they need to load up offensively to overcompensate for their defense that is going to struggle regardless of how the draft goes. Regardless of how the draft goes, you're not going to find a complete elite defense in just one offseason. That's just not going to happen. So the Raiders may be interested in D-Hop, and Hunter Renfrow is somebody who could be on the block. Josh McDaniels was asked about him today, and I'm going to spare you the ums and from Josh McDaniels by not showing you the clip. But Paul Gutierrez transcribing the press conference today. I'd love for him to have the opportunity to be healthy and go through the whole offseason and then into training camp and feel good about going into the season health-wise, and then try to stay healthy, seeing what he could do. Obviously, he was a big reason I was excited about being here. I've had a long history of these kinds of guys that I've had a chance to work with and was super excited, and still I'm super excited. So Josh McDaniels hamming it up, saying that he's excited to work with Hunter Renfrow, but just wants to see him healthy. To me, I mean, maybe that's some code speak for, yeah, the guy hasn't been healthy, so I'm open to moving on from the guy. And I love Hunter Renfrow. He's a great baller, great player, but he was unavailable last year due to concussion problems. He had that rib issue in 2019, did not have a rib issue last year, but had that concussion problem. And then you saw the Raiders go out there and sign Jacoby Myers, a guy who is a slot receiver. And, people say, maybe they want multiple slot receivers. At the same time, I feel like, certain players fill certain roles. Jacoby Myers played the lion's share of his snaps in the slot last year for New England. And I just feel like if you were the Raiders and you already had Jacoby Myers, maybe you can get DeAndre Hopkins for, $20 million, $15 million against the cap. The Cardinals pay the other half. You offload that Renfrow contract, save some cap there, and you can have DeAndre Hopkins on the outside with Devontae Adams. I mean, that's much better than having Mac Hollins opposite of Devontae Adams. And then Jacoby Myers in the slot. I mean, that is a dominant, great offense, and I think it would still, no matter what, be an upgrade over what the Raiders have right now, which is just Devontae, Renfrow, and Jacoby Myers, and sort of a redundant slot receiver there right now. Josh McDaniels was also asked about Josh Jacobs, the running back. What's going to happen there? Saying that, he wants to get a deal done, a long-term deal. That's what he hopes to happen, and it makes sense for everybody. We don't know what's going to happen. He's playing on the franchise tag. Ziegler said yesterday in an interview with The Athletic that, they signed him to the franchise tag because they value him a lot, and $10 million is still a lot to play for. So I think they're giving him a good deal by paying him $10 million this year, and I think they're going to expect him to play on the franchise tag, and I think they know that these players don't have much wiggle room there. What is Jacobs really going to do? Is he going to demand a trade? I don't think so. So I have a feeling he's going to play on the franchise tag, similar to Saquon Barkley. We saw him, get franchise tagged by the Giants, and he seemed like he was sort of having the same attitude as Jacobs, where he'd rather have a long-term deal, right? But it is what it is with the running back position. You got a lot of people coming out every year in the draft at that position, and unfortunately, these players, even if they're the best running back in the NFL, are having trouble getting long-term contracts. And the Raiders have such an important draft, man. They actually have the most picks in the NFL draft. You can see it here according to Field Yates, 12 picks, tied with the Texans. So even though they don't have the most top 100 picks, sort of like the Lions, Seahawks, and Texans here, still got a lot of draft picks, still were able to find good value, especially in the 7th round last year with Thayer Mumford. Gonna be a decent backup right tackle at least. I still think there's a lot of optimism in the building as to what they can do with the full draft, especially leading the NFL in draft picks. And Anthony Richardson, the physical freak, the guy who is the most athletic QB probably in the history of the NFL entering the draft. Well, the Raiders are going to have a top 30 visit with him. It's scheduled in April, along with other teams like the Panthers, the Colts, who are going to do their due diligence, and so are the Falcons and the Titans as well. We know the Colts head coach ran that Eagles Jalen Hurts style offense, and the Falcons obviously had a running style offense with Mariota last year, so they probably, I think, out of all these people, are the most interested in Anthony Richardson right now. But the Raiders are going to meet with the guy, and they've already attended, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud's pro days, but they did not attend Will Levis's pro day, and Josh McDaniels was asked about this today. He said that they had dinner actually with Will Levis the night before the pro day, and what we've learned also is that Champ Kelly, assistant GM, and other scouts were there at Will Levis's pro day anyways. So they still have equally met with Will Levis, just like they've met with CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and plan to meet with Anthony Richardson. And we'll see what they do with the Florida Gators pro day. Looks like the Florida Gators pro day will be March 30th in 3 days. We'll see if Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler roll through. And basically, Josh McDaniels was asked about the number 7 pick. Would you take a quarterback? Would you take Jalen Carter? He was favorable to taking Jalen Carter, but he always has this one phrase, right? If we feel like he's the right guy. So he's never going to, give up his draft plan exactly. But also saying that with regards to quarterback, if we feel like the guy's worth it, I think we would do it. And he was also explaining how all these different QBs are different, from Jake Haener all the way to Hendon Hooker to Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young. I think the Raiders will for sure take a quarterback. The question is where, and I believe they are trying to hide that right now because that's a smart decision to make. And so Josh McDaniels was pumping up Jimmy Garoppolo, and you saw Dave Ziegler do the same thing yesterday in his interview with The Athletic. They're trying to build some optimism around this guy, but you heard even Jimmy Garoppolo in his introductory press conference say that, hey, he's down to compete even if they draft a guy. He's just going to go in and compete, and perhaps he knows already, based on his contract too, that he's in line to be a good mentor. And when asked about backup QBs and if Josh McDaniels would go for a veteran backup QB behind Jimmy Garoppolo, McDaniels went on to talk about how Jimmy Garoppolo was a rookie when he was a backup. So was Jarrett Stidham in New England when he was a backup. So it seems like the ideal goal is to have a rookie, young, developing backup QB, some guy who's going to be there for a long time in the future. So you don't have to go out there and try to find a veteran backup QB every year. Try to find a Nick Mullins, find a Jarrett Stidham. Just have your guy that you're putting time into, and it will eventually pay off years down the road. And Lamar Jackson stated today on social media that he requested a trade from the Baltimore Ravens on March 2nd. On pretty much 25 days ago, he's been on the block. We know he has not signed his franchise tag yet. He could be traded. He could be moved for 2 first-round picks. And it seems like he's not getting the contract he wants with the Baltimore Ravens. And so when I woke up today, I see all this, Lamar Jackson to the Raiders, and it's trending everywhere. Everyone's talking about Lamar to the Raiders. And I just wonder, is this bots, or are there real Raiders fans who seriously have been following the whole entire free agency and offseason who really believe the Raiders could make a play for Lamar Jackson? Guys, we just signed Jimmy Garoppolo. We just gave him guaranteed money. Lamar Jackson wants a record-breaking contract similar to Deshaun Watson. We know Mark Davis isn't the wealthiest owner. Does anybody really believe, does any real Raiders fan really believe the Raiders are going to go trade for Lamar Jackson? I hope not. Either way, I do think it would be awesome. I think Lamar Jackson is a great player. I wish he was a Raider, but the Raiders already made their decision early on in free agency with Jimmy Garoppolo, and rather than paying record-breaking money, they're likely going to look to the draft for their next franchise QB. I do find it odd how nobody's made a play for Lamar Jackson, but it will definitely affect the Raiders, especially if he lands in the AFC. And a lot of people find the Colts to be possible because the Colts head coach ran that Jalen Hurts running style offense last year. Hey guys, if you are still watching right now, man, I really appreciate it. And subscribe to this channel if you want to help support us and help us grow. And check out some of these other videos that we have on this channel that you may have missed. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.